I've been freeze drying for years and I've freeze dried thousands of pounds of food, but today I'm gonna show you the top 10 freeze drying accessories that I can't live without. And the crazy part is, half of them weren't even made for freeze drying. And even though I'm an owner of a freeze drying supplies company, I'm not just gonna jam pack this list full of things that we make. I'm gonna share what's gonna be the most helpful for you. If you freeze dry as much as I do, you don't care about who makes it or what its intended use is. All you care about is that it's making the process easier. Number one is gonna be a food scale. This sounds boring, but just hear me out, just for a second. With a food scale, especially when you're first starting out, it's gonna do a whole lot of different things for you. If you're trying to find rehydration rate for the meals that you're making, this is gonna help you with that. You get your tray full of food before it's freeze dried, and you weigh it in grams, and then you'll put it in your freeze dryer, you will freeze dry it, and then when you pull it out, you weigh it again. The difference in those numbers is gonna be the amount of water that was removed from your food. So this is gonna tell you the exact amount of water to put back into that food. You can also make the perfect portion sizes with this. You can measure everything out in grams and get the exact weight across each one of your meals, and that really helps with rehydration. But one of the coolest things you can do with this is something that not a lot of people talk about. You can kind of use it to test your food to see if it's still good, or at least giving you an indicator if something is wrong just from the get-go. So what you're gonna do is after you package your food, let's say it's a Mylar bag, you have your oxygen absorber, your food, you've sealed it, everything is done. You've got this Mylar bag full of your food. Weigh your bag in grams and then write on the bag how much that weight is, how many grams that is. Then put it on your shelf and store it. Let's say 2 years later, you come back and you wanna eat that food. If you're questioning it in any way, shape, or form, you're questioning the seal that you got, take that bag and put it back on the scale. If it's gained weight, that means it absorbed water from the humidity, it's absorbed some of the moisture from the air. That's what it's done. So if it's gained weight, you probably shouldn't eat it because something was wrong with your seal there. I know it's an extra step, but there's a whole lot of people that are really worried about the food that they're eating. So this gives you kind of that first indication if it's good or not. This is honestly pretty outdated and old at this point, but I'll put a link down in the description for a newer one. And just, it goes without being said, everything that I'm talking about in this video, there's gonna be links in the description for. All right, number two, I'm doing two things in one because they kind of serve the same-ish purpose here. So just bear with me. I've got my blender and I've got this little coffee grinder, and I'm gonna tell you how I use both of these. With my blender, I have a Vitamix. I am obsessed with Vitamixes now that I've finally owned one. They are very expensive. You don't need a Vitamix. Any blender will do. What I mostly use my Vitamix for is if I want to make something into powder in the first place. That's the whole reason I'm putting it into my freeze dryer. I'm gonna blend it first in this to get it nice and fine before I ever freeze dry it. Then I'll pour it into my tray, put it in the freeze dryer. If you're planning to make powders out of something, let's say tomato powder, for instance, you can cut up a bunch of tomatoes and put them in there, but you're gonna get a lot more powder if you blend them up first. So that's what I use this for most of the time. Now with this, these are like 15 bucks. They're super cheap. I have multiple. I have one for super hot peppers that I do, and then I have another one for, I actually just bought the other one. So I have this one for anything that's not spicy. What these do is it grinds everything into a very, very fine powder, much more fine than you can get with most blenders. So if I'm doing tomato powder, I will finish it off in here, just give it a quick hit in here. It turns it into like almost like flour. It's so fine. So that way when you go to rehydrate things and you use it in cooking, you're not gonna have big chunks. So if you're sneaking vegetables and things like that into your kids' food, this is the way to powder it. Powder it in this, they will never have any clue that the vegetables are in there. It's great. And number three, I'm giving you two things again because these serve a very similar purpose, just I use them a little bit differently. So this one is a Crunchco product. This is mine, we make this. One of them is parchment paper. I love ours because it comes with a sleeve. It's not like a plastic sleeve. It's made from 100% wood pulp that's not bleached, so it comes out kind of like a brown, nice piece of paper. And it really works well for just, for one, keeping your papers organized in this. And then for two, it really does a good job of just not have anything stick to your tray. If you're just starting out in freeze drying, you want to use something on the bottom because if not, you'll end up with a spatula trying to scrape it off. The amount of like spatulas that I've probably destroyed in my house that my wife may or may not know about is a lot. And it's because I didn't use these from the get-go. And then you have silicone mats, which are similar, right? They work kind of the same. The main purpose of them is just to make sure that nothing's sticking to the bottom. And then these are also reusable. And the The difference between the two, at least for me, the ways that I use them differently is silicone mats I'm gonna use for anything that's liquid or close to liquid. Let's say if I'm doing tomato powder, for instance. I'm gonna put this down first because this does a good job of keeping the liquid above it. With the parchment paper, the liquid will kind of go underneath it, so anything like eggs or purees or anything like that, I'm using our silicone mats. And at this point, every company under the sun sells these. I prefer ours. They're just really strong, really durable, and I really just love the nice little envelope that we have here. I will say the one drawback with silicone, not just ours, but any silicone in general, is if you're doing something that's really susceptible to the heat, it needs that heat from the tray. So let's say candy, right? I don't do candy on silicone mats because it doesn't have as good of a heat transfer. So I'll use parchment paper when I do candy. So that's just something to keep in mind. Number 4 is tray dividers. There's not very many products on the market that are going to divide up your trays evenly. This is currently the best one available. Now, this right here is the configuration that has every single square in there, but give me just a second. I'm gonna show you my favorite configuration here and how I use it. All right, this configuration right here is kind of my go-to when I use these. I don't really use the tiny little square ones. This is the one that I use. This is the 10 portion tray. So when I'm doing a meal, I'll usually do 2 of these squares for 1 meal, and it works out pretty well. This video is sponsored by me. It's sponsored by me. I have a freeze drying community where I'm sharing recipes, tips, tricks, education, and answering any possible question you can have under the sun about freeze drying. I'm gonna have a link for it down in the description, and I hope to see you there. Number 6 is gonna be tray stackers. If you've never used tray stackers before, they're pretty awesome, and I use them in 2 main ways. The first one is I will pack my trays full of food. I will stack them up on top of each other, and then I will put them in my freezer to pre-freeze. That way when they go in the freeze dryer, they're already pre-frozen and it makes your cycle time a lot faster. The next way that I use them is when I have to go from inside my house where my freezer is to out here to where the freeze dryer is, that is a very long walk. And there's been times where I haven't had my tray stackers, or I've been doing so many loads that my tray stackers are already being used in another stack in another freezer, and I've had to kind of come out here with just like carrying 2 trays at a time, and it's a mess. So it's really nice to be able to just hold on to them. There are a lot of companies that are selling tray stackers now that you can pretty much get them anywhere, but I'm proud to say that my favorite ones are ours, the Crunchco ones. There's a couple reasons for that. Ours have these little tabs on them, and so when you're putting them on the tray, you can kind of push down on these tabs and it helps quite a bit. But where that becomes extremely helpful is when you pull them out of the freezer. If you've ever done this before, you know exactly what I'm talking about. When you go to pull your trays out of the freezer and go to put them into your freeze dryer, you have to separate all your trays. And sometimes those tray stackers can get stuck. You know, they're frozen there. There is some moisture in there, and they kind of bond with the tray because of the ice. And it is incredibly difficult to start ripping them all apart. So I really like these because the tabs make it very easy to just pull them right off. They snap in, snap off. They lock in really well. So I tested it out, and I stacked 10 trays the other day with this, and I sat there and shook it, and they didn't go anywhere. So these ones are my favorite. I love them. Let's go to the next one. All right, the next one is I've honestly probably messed the number up a couple times at this point, and I'm gonna guess 7. I think this is 7. I call these my little Wolverine claws, and this was honestly probably the biggest bang for my buck that I've ever spent with freeze drying, and it's not even something that's meant for freeze drying. What these are these are meant to hold down an onion and then slice the onion down these little lines. Let's see if I can get you a good shot of that. But what I use these for is freeze drying berries, especially blueberries, but this will also work with something like grapes or cranberries, anything that has a skin on the outside, because what happens if you put those in the freeze dryer, it can't pull the moisture out of that skin, and so you have to puncture the skin. It takes a long time to puncture the skin if you're doing a toothpick or if you're stabbing them with a fork or cutting them in half. These are all things that people do, and they take a very long time. Each one of these costs about $5 on Amazon, and the way that I use it is I'll put my, let's say blueberries, I'll put my blueberries in a bowl. I'll put some B-roll right here. I apologize for all my overlays and B-rolls being vertically shot, but that's just how I've been filming for the last 2 years. So that's, at least it's there. But what I do is I'll put it in a bowl and I'll stab it. And then when I come up, I've got blueberries that are all over these little spines here. And then I just put the other claw in there and push them back down onto the tray. I can do an entire batch of blueberries in 5 minutes. It's incredibly fast. Yes, there are tools out there that are made specifically for rolling blueberries. But unless you're doing blueberries multiple times a week, and this is something that you really need to speed your time up on, to me, it's not worth $150, especially when this is $10 for 2 of them. So this is what I like to use. Number 8, I think, is the Wi-Fi dongle. You might have heard about this. You probably already have this even maybe, but if you haven't heard about this, if you have a freeze dryer that is not Wi-Fi compatible, this turns it Wi-Fi compatible. So this is for Harvest Right specifically. And what it does is you plug it into your freeze dryer and it connects you through the app. So I could be literally across the entire world. I can be checking on the status of my freeze dryer. So where am I at in the cycle? How much time do I have left? I can even change the settings and then start a batch all from my phone from all the way across the world. It's amazing. So now, I mean, this is not inside my house, right? So the way that it used to be is if I was inside, I'd wake up in the morning and I was trying to plan out my day, like when do I have to pull everything out of the freeze dryer? I would have to walk out here and check the freeze dryer just to see how much time is left. But now I can literally just pull up my phone, see where we're at, and let's say I'm about to run out of dry time, right? And I want to extend the cycle. I can just push a couple buttons on my phone and extend the cycle. So it's great. But I do have a little bit of a secret, and my partners might get a little upset at me, but I'm going to do it anyways. So right now, if you go to our website, the Crunchco website, we're starting to sell Harvest Right products, and this is one of them. So we don't have a lot in stock because we're kind of testing the waters and seeing how it goes, but we do have some of these. So for this one, I'm going to put the Crunchco link, and then I'm gonna also put the Harvest Right link, because if we're out of stock, definitely go get them from Harvest Right. But also, don't go tell the whole world that we're selling these yet, because I haven't announced it. But I will soon, really soon. We're just waiting on one more shipment of something. Number 9, you're gonna get a twofer again, because I use these for the same part of the process, kind of. This is a giant funnel, and it's not very easy to find a funnel that is big enough to, hold on, to fit an entire tray into, right? So if I wanna pour something quickly from my freeze dryer tray into a Mylar bag or a jar, it is just easy to have a funnel that's big enough. It's not very easy to find them, and so far, this one's the best. What I typically use these for is if I have kind of loose things that are on the freeze dryer tray, things that I don't have to grind up or things that I don't have to keep in perfect portion. So let's say like a whole tray of strawberries, this is perfect for, because I can dump them down there straight into a jar or a Mylar bag, usually a jar in my case. Which brings me to the next thing, which is a jar sealer. No, I don't recommend this one. It is terrible, but it's also like 4 years old, so the technology's come a long way. Anytime that I'm storing food in jars, I will put an oxygen absorber, and then I also vacuum seal it just to kind of have a double safety there. These are very cheap, but I use both of these kind of at the same point in the process. Usually I've got a jar under here, pour it in, and then I seal it up with this. Number 10 is extra trays, and I put this at the end because this is one that gets talked about a lot, and for good reason. If I was to tell you to get one accessory, period, just one accessory, it's gonna be extra trays, because you can have one set of trays in your freeze dryer being dried. You can get the other set of trays, you can fill them up with food, and you can put them in your freezer, so that way when your freeze dryer gets done, you can just take them, the other trays, right out of the freezer, right into your freeze dryer, and it saves so much time, and really you can get an entire extra load through your freeze dryer in a week. And a minute ago, how I said we're waiting on like one shipment of things to start selling Harvest Right things on our website, it's trays. We've got a whole bunch of trays coming. Don't go telling everybody that. Sorry, Austin. Sorry, David. They might not be available though right when this video goes live, but if you're seeing this down the road, we will probably be selling these and a whole ton of other Harvest Right products. The whole reason I was able to put this list together is because I've made so many mistakes. I've freeze dried literally thousands of different things. So much trial and error and so many mistakes. But with those mistakes come learning, and then all those learnings end up in my freeze drying community. If you really want to deep dive and learn more, there's a link down in the description, or go watch this video next.